will get to that. Although I was also planning to talk about a couple of things. First, I wanted to just go over what I feel, for me anyway, the take-home messages are from the conference, and how that affects my set of priorities for research. So my first takeaway message is that agriculture is an important platform or an important tool to improve nutrition and health. And I do focus on nutrition. I take the point that Robert was making about health being, I think we have talked about nutrition and health a lot in this conference and not necessarily made the difference. And so I want to make the point that I am focusing more on nutrition and health as it relates to nutrition. So agriculture is a great tool to improve nutrition, but it hasn't delivered to the extent that we would have expected or hoped in the past. The new analysis that we've heard, looking at elasticities, for example, of the relationship between agricultural growth and stunting, confirm previous results, basically, that the elasticities tend to be relatively small. That link is not extremely strong. So if we wait for agriculture to improve nutrition, it will take too long, and we will be in 20 years from now where we are now. So the third point, obviously, is that agriculture is necessary, but is not enough to improve nutrition. We do need to bring the other sectors. So this is just to bring us to the famous topic of multi-sectorality and the fact that we really need all the other sectors to work together, or at least to be involved in addressing malnutrition. So that brings me to the first research question. I think we have a tendency, or there is a tendency, to ask the question, should we invest in agriculture or education or health in order to improve nutrition? And this is the wrong question. It's not either or. We need to invest in agriculture and in the complementary types of investments in other sectors that will bring about improvements in nutrition. So I have heard too often that, well, we need to tell policymakers what they should invest in, and it seems to always assume that it's one thing. It cannot be one thing, and I think we have the evidence. Well, no, we don't really have the evidence. We have the concept right now that we need to work multisectorally. The second research question is, well, how do we do that? How do we work multisectorally? And it is a research question because, again, as Robert says, we've been talking about working multisectorally for years and decades. And we don't have evidence that it actually makes a difference. We don't really have evidence that it works. We actually might have evidence that it doesn't work that well. So how do we do that is not that clear, but I think it's a very important topic of research in the context of this area of work. And I could think of, for example, experimenting. There are different ways we can do it. For example, we can say, we have to work multisectorally, so we're going to think about the problem together, we're going to design the interventions together, we're going to implement them, evaluate them, we're going to do everything multisectorally. That's one approach. The other approach could be what Robert was referring to, that Mira was saying yesterday, think multisectorally, act sectorally. I was not entirely sure what she meant, but I think it's think about the problems, discuss the issues, discuss a plan, but then implement in what you're good at, implement sectorally. Another way we could think of all this is that agriculture could be used as a delivery mechanism to deliver nutrition, basically incorporate some nutrition interventions, direct targeted nutrition interventions in agricultural programs, and that refers to your question. And then the final way that I could think about is, do we really need to integrate? What about if we were to target communities? We have communities that are vulnerable. We know they need everything. Why don't we target everything to them? All the sectors working in silos, targeting those communities and pressing all the buttons at the same time. But do they really need to integrate? We don't know. So basically, my bottom line on all of this is that we have no evidence of the fact that work integration makes a difference. and we also don't know how to do it, and we need to generate that evidence in order to advance more than we have in the past. So that brings me to the third point, which is we need to do evaluations, which was also mentioned before and has been mentioned nicely throughout the symposium, the meetings. The kinds of evaluations we need, though, are not your simple randomized experimental trial with placebo control. One of the reasons why we don't have good evaluations of the linkages or the work that has been done jointly between agriculture, health, and nutrition is that it is so complex. And we are facing the same complexity. It hasn't gotten easier, but we have developed better tools to evaluate. We have, I think, advanced enormously in terms of understanding that there are other rigorous ways of evaluating that don't necessarily involve experimental trials. We also recognize the importance of understanding the mechanisms, the how, the impact pathways. But the situation here is a situation where we have multiple objectives, multiple outcomes, multiple pathways of potential impact. So it really is an area that is extremely complex, but we are, I think, very ready to address this area. Sorry, Joachim, I'm done. You're looking at your watch. It always made me nervous when you were looking at your watch.
It's a new watch, and I think
you like
I'm checking whether it's still going well.
Okay, so I'm done anyway. For those who don't know, Joachim used to be my boss, and he was looking at his watch a lot. And so then you had to stop talking. So overall, we have a big challenge ahead, both in terms of implementation and in terms of evaluation and in terms of generating the evidence that we so desperately need.
He's not your boss anymore.
No, I know.